that's really fascinating. To sort of summarize, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but to summarize, what you're basically saying is that Europeans, or if you want to be more crass, white people have largely led this thing. But now we obviously want everyone on board. And if they could have been on board previously, that would have been amazing. But obviously, technology and all of that made it complicated. But we want everyone on board of all races. It's us, the people that want to build on the past and go towards the future, versus those who want to burn everything down. That's sort of a...
I would qualify it a little bit. One of the... Essentially, you're spot on, but I qualified a little bit. You see, when one realizes the importance of civilization, of civilizations, one should use the plural, then one should realize that being a Muslim, subscribing to Muslim civilization, is actually subscribing something which you view, which you experience as constituting your identity. So it's very, very important. When one speak of Sino-civilization, once again, Sino-civilization, Chinese civilization, constitutes the personal identity of a Chinese person. So the important thing that one has to realize is that there is a variety of civilizations, each in essence equally important. Okay? Now there can be, and there has been, and there will be in future, major clashes between or among civilizations. That's true. But the main thing is that generally we should realize the utmost importance of the various civilizations that are in existence at this stage, and we should protect our civilizations. As Westerners, we should defend our civilization, might sound warlike, against any other civilization that seeks to wage some acrimonious war, cultural of whatever kind, against Western civilization. But at the same time, and that is, I think, where your point come in. At the same time, you also find a phenomenon which, to my mind, which you specifically find in woke, which is in essence anti-civilization generally. It's generally anti-civilization. The reason why woke in the United States, also in South Africa and so forth, but specifically in the English-speaking world, is so prominent in Western civilization is for what reason? Simply because Western civilization in the past, especially 500 years, has been the most prominent, the most successful civilization, okay? Which have also done a tremendous amount of damage to other civilizations. That's true, okay? I'm not offering excuses for that, because if I'm offering excuses for that, I say, well, I must offer excuses for human nature. I can't do that. People make war. That's unfortunately. I'm not in person a warlike type, not at all. But it won't serve any purpose denying human nature. Nations make war against each other. Civilizations are often in conflict with each other and so on. But that we must account for, and you must be ready to respond to that. But the important thing is when you deal with leftists, with a leftist trend in politics, which has come along since, if you want to put a date to it, want to attach a date to it, from 1789, French Revolution, actually going a little bit back, Jean-Jacques Rousseau and so on, then you must know you're dealing with something here which is inherently anti-civilization. It is as much opposed to Western civilization, or rather to Islamic civilization or Sino or Japanese or Indian civilization, as it is to Western civilization. It is just that Western civilization at the moment is on the forefront and has to bear most of the brunt of the attack from anti-civilizational wokeness, because that's in essence what it is.
Get ready for our upcoming debate on the 11th of May at Huis Maree, Stellenbosch. Are you sick and tired of the same old political discussions that go nowhere? Are you looking for a lively and engaging debate that will leave you feeling inspired and informed?
I don't fear the future because I know we're part of the future.
Our debate will include 3 largest political parties in South Africa. Each of these panelists will have the opportunity to present their arguments, provide proof for their claims, and most exciting of all, you as an audience member will have the opportunity to ask your most burning questions during our Q&A session. So whether you are a student looking to broaden your worldview or just a concerned citizen, join us for an evening of spirited discussion and respectful disagreement. We guarantee you'll leave feeling informed, enlightened, and excited.
No, I get 100% your argument. I'm just thinking strategically, isn't it better? I mean, if you make the argument, I don't know, Western civilization versus this or whatever, I see it, if you make it rather civilization, the structure versus those who want to burn things down, that's a better argument to make. It's a more unifying message. And the sort of, you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, you're still making the argument for Western culture to exist because it's fundamentally civilizational. But if you broaden the argument, you include what you've called for I believe it's Sino, the Chinese civilization, the Orthodox Russian, they're with you then. So sort of what I'm saying, it's a better strategic move to make it civilization versus those who want to burn things down and sort of discard the entire defense for Western civilization because it's not necessary. It's not needed, I think.
Yeah. No, I think one has to do both. In a sense, if you see, it's very important to distinguish between civilization as an anti-barbarian factor, okay? Or an anti-barbaric factor. Then you deal with civilization broadly. But then at the same time, as important or even more important, to have an eye for the fact that through history, the main actors, actor is the right word, the main actors of human history and the largest actors of history were the distinctive civilizations. The reason why it's also important to emphasize that is that the attack upon a specific civilization from some barbaric origin will differ depending on which civilization, be it Islam, Western civilization, Sino-civilization, it will differ. But just coming back to your point, I think it is important to have a sense for mutual recognition. Instead of saying, look, in a sense, we're all the same because we subscribe to civilization, it is, to my mind, rather more important, even that is important, but I think it's more important to say that civilizations do differ. Civilizations are anchored and have roots of a different kind, have characters of a different kind. Each of them contributing towards the wealth of humankind in general. That would be, for example, an argument that goes back to Johann Gottlieb Herder, a German philosopher, who wrote in the middle and the later part of the 18th century. He was very interesting, this German, very strongly opposed to colonialism, because Western colonialism at that stage, Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, British, French colonization, and so on. He said the main reason for his opposition to colonization was that it denied and it disregarded the very specific contributions civilizational contributions, civilizational characteristics of the various other civilizations in the world, Islam, African, and so on and so forth. Okay? And he made an argument for humanity or humanism, Humanität in German, on the basis of, on account of the fact that broader, general, global Humanität, humanity, is founded on indispensable, on the indispensable building blocks of the various civilizations.
Yeah.
I think
I get 100% what you're saying. My only problem is once you start focusing on that, it becomes a sort of, you have to bring in the past. And I think you're falling into a trap, because then you're sort of trying to defend colonialism and apartheid. It's sort of people dragging you down to their level, and then they beat you with experience. Then they throw you with all those cliche words. There's something more universal, I would say, a civilization versus those who want to burn things down. It's something of, we just recognize good things and bad things happen in the past. Now we have to focus on the future. If you talk about Western civilization, now you have to defend the past. And then you get dragged down to their level where they, but this happened bad in the past and this happened bad in the past. And then it becomes that fruitless, futile conversations that really don't get anywhere. So I keep thinking strategically. It's not, I get what you're saying. I keep thinking strategically.
Yeah. I would still not subscribe to that. I'll tell you why. I think let's revisit history. Let's do that. Western civilization, the various fronts of Western civilization, the first since around about year 1500, the various fronts of Western civilization was involved in colonization of many parts of the world. Precisely as a result of that, we speak English in many places, in the United States, in South Africa, and so on and so forth. Why? Well, that's because of the tremendous success of English and thereafter British colonization. Can't deny that. The moment we open our mouths to speak English, even though it's my second language, often make mistakes, that testifies to successful British colonization. The whole of South America, save for Brazil, speaks Spanish. And Brazil, with 250 million people, speak Portuguese. That's the consequence of successful Portuguese and Spanish Iberian colonization. And so we can carry on. Okay? So in other words, the history can never escape you. It's always with you. If I go to a school and study history, if I go to a university and study philosophy, or sociology, or whatever, or engineering, even engineering, then I must study mostly the work that people from Europe and the United States more recently have done. They were Westerners, and the reason why they were so successful was precisely because they had the kind of a Western impulse about which we can speak a lot. So the point is, the moment you get a strong culture, it manifests in a number of ways. It manifests culturally very strongly, in the sense of poetry, in the sense of literature, in the sense of music and so on, very specific of the Western world, tremendous heights that were reached in the field of music and so on. But it also manifests politically and militarily. They took up arms. They take up arms. They take up arms and they go out in the world and they are victorious against other peoples who can't match them. That's what has been happening. This happened broadly with Western civilization. Let me just say, just interrupt myself by saying the following. If you look at the Portuguese empire that has been established the world over, in Brazil, in in the East and so on. It wasn't only Portuguese, it was actually the consequence of the Crusades. It was still, in a sense, a crusade. And secondly, it was a consequences of northern Italian and southern German banking, who made that possible. So it was a Portuguese success, and I say success, with a lot of violence and everything that went along with that, but it was a Portuguese success, but at the same time, a broader European one. Now, okay, that's now what the West has done. Now, at the moment, from a woke point of view, the worst people that have ever lived in this world were Westerners, precisely because they went over the entire world, they colonized the whole world, they enforced their ideologies, they enforced their religion, they enforced their way of thinking and their culture upon everybody. How many times has that taken place in world history? It's impossible to count, but let's quickly refer to a few. Russia was a small state. It expanded over a large area, and eventually there was a Russian Empire. Islam, well, where did it originate? It originated in Saudi Arabia, not actually in Saudi Arabia generally, but only at a few places. And where's Islam now? So it was massive, extensive and intensive colonization. Extensive because it covered a massive area. Intensive because you can't think of a more intense form of colonization than changing people's thinking in such a way that religious-wise they think completely different than they thought previously. Indian civilization, exactly the same. If you go and obviously also Chinese civilization. But then, if you go back into older history, there was the various civilizations of 3,000, 4,000, 2,500 years ago in the Middle East and so on, who each and every time simply vanquished any others around them. That's human history. So my response to people who are so extremely upset with Western civilization and with colonization and so on was to say, well, look, yes, there's a lot of reasons to be, a tremendous amount of reasons to be upset. I'm speaking as an Afrikaner. I'm still upset with the British who came and fight us Boere in South Africa. But the fact of the matter is, well, and at least I'm very proud of the fact that there was strong resistance, very stiff resistance, who made us heroes for a very long time. The fact of the matter is that what happened in relation to Britain, also in their relations to the Transvaal Republic, to the Boere, was a very typical phenomenon of history. The strong ones doing not what they ought to do, morally speaking. They do what they can. They do what they are allowed to do. So don't allow other people to don't allow yourself to be vanquished by others. Be strong. It's perhaps even a ridiculous thing to say at first glance, but that's not really what it is. That's human history. It's not. We're not living in some paradisical world. We are living in precisely the opposite of that. How long have we been living in the opposite of that? All times.
Yeah, I think the problem is I'm just very restless. So I can, for example, imagine now if this was a debate, and which I've hosted numerous debates, and if there was a third panelist, he would say, "Oh, but Koos is a racist. He's trying to defend white people, blah blah blah," and then it gets sidetracked. But I've now realized that's basically the nature of debate. I mean, this has to happen. So it's just a question of I'm unrealistic. I mean, these debates, these discussions have to happen for it to be progress. I just want it to be progress, but I realize now, first there has to be the discussions for the progress to happen.
May I just say this? 10 years, 12 years ago, we in South Africa were not actually clear in our own minds that there was something like Western civilization. We didn't think about it that way. We were not actually, we didn't actually realize that that Westerners, people subscribing and living in accordance with Western civilization, regardless of where they might be in the world, in North America, in Europe, in Australia, and so on, we didn't realize that we were actually part of the same civilization. I come across many people who actually don't realize it. It's a realization that is now sinking in. That's very, 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 very important, because you don't understand your world if you don't realize that. So, and precisely for that reason, it's important. I think one of the most important books that were written was, in fact, by Huntington, to realize the civilizational nature of human history and of our current situation. I strongly recommend that book for everybody. I've read it more than once.